And with that, we welcome Jim Bowden to talk all about it. I mean, 1,000 different ways to go, Jim, but I want to start with this. It's not often that a game gets so hyped up and then matches or exceeds the hype. I think it's safe to say this one did. What was your biggest takeaway from an epic showdown between the two best teams in baseball this season?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt they were the two best teams in baseball. They're also the two most evenly matched teams I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And that really stood out to me when we got to the 8th inning and you looked up at the scoreboard and both teams had 1 run, 6 hits, no errors, and 5 men left on base. And you realized that both teams had won 109 games, including the postseason. It can't get any more even than that. And we go into the 9th inning. And that's it. A 1-inning game basically to decide who goes on to play Atlanta and who goes home. And Cody Bellinger comes up to the plate with 2 on. And this is a player that hit under 200 the entire season. And he gets the game-winning hit. They threw him all breaking balls. I was surprised they didn't mix in a fastball, but it was one slider after another. And that final slider, he timed it perfectly. And he looked like the 2019 Bellinger that won an MVP award. Someone we didn't see most of the year, but an incredible at-bat. Justin Turner scores the go-ahead run, and then the Dodgers decide, guess what? We're going to go to what will be the runner-up in the Cy Young voting this year, Max Scherzer, who they acquired at the deadline, and he was the guy to close that game out in the 9th inning. In San Francisco, just incredible. The sad part is one of these teams had to go home. It's unfortunate for the year that San Francisco had, and arguably they are the two best teams in baseball this year. And now we'll see if the Dodgers can repeat as champions. It's going to be very interesting.
You know, before we move forward, I want to touch on what you just mentioned with that Cody Bellinger at bat. A little surprised they didn't throw at least one fastball. If you look at his season, really, it was highlighted by the fact that he could not catch up to velocity. You know, is that the type of decision, not throwing any fastballs in that situation, that's going to, you know, stick with this team all offseason?
You know, what I think it is more is that you have to mix it up. Big league hitters, when they see the same pitch over and over again in the same at bat, sooner or later you catch up to it. And I think, look, because I don't want to take anything away from what the game that Buster Posey called, because he's a Hall of Fame catcher that called an unbelievable game for Logan Webb and every other Giant pitcher in this series. But obviously the game plan going in is they didn't think Bellinger was going to be able to hit Doval's breaking ball. And that's why they, and by the way, he didn't until that last breaking ball. I just felt like there were too many pitches in the same spot. And he certainly was looking for it, and he got it and took advantage of it. And really, when you look at the difference in the game, you know, Doval wasn't the closer till September. This is a rookie pitcher in a big moment. Kenley Jansen, who pitched the 8th, he's been there before. Max Scherzer's been there before, but the entire season was on the hands of Doval, and unfortunately, he couldn't make that one pitch to end it. But the Giants can't sit there and second-guess themselves in this game or this year, not when you win 109 games. They were good enough to win the World Series. They just came up one pitch short to the Los Angeles Dodgers in what we'll all remember as one of the greatest races in divisional baseball history.
You know, Max Scherzer may already have gone down as the best acquisition, trade deadline acquisition in Major League history. To see him go out there, though, 2 days rest, yeah, it would have been his throw day. But, you know, knowing Max Scherzer, there was no way he wasn't getting the ball in that spot. Just what does it say about him? You know, even though we already know so much about him as a competitor, to take the ball there and do something that he's not used to doing.
Yeah, well, when you win 3 Cy Young Awards and you win a world championship in 2019 with the Washington Nationals, you know what it feels like, and you want to be the guy on the mound in the moment. And he made it very clear to manager Dave Roberts before the game that he wanted that 9th inning with the lead, and that he wanted to pitch in this game. He didn't care that he only had a couple days rest. Max wanted it. And I got to tell you, it was an emotional moment for me after the game to watch the celebration, but more importantly, the hug between Clayton Kershaw and Max Scherzer, two of the best pitchers of our generation, 2 slam dunk Hall of Famers. Even if they never threw another pitch, they're both slam dunk Hall of Famers. To watch that moment of those 2 great pitchers, absolutely incredible.
So I do have to ask you this, and not to take away from the game at all, but the last pitch that Scherzer threw, Gabe Morales calls strike three, a pitch that borderline at best was a Wilmer Flores swing. In the moment on replay, it looked like it wasn't even close. Just your thoughts on making that type of a call in that spot with all these teams that fought for, to have it end that way.
Yeah, man, I don't think the Dodgers won because of that call, but, these moments, there's a lot of pressure on players as well as umpires. And you saw Justin Turner not field that ground ball in the ninth inning, a ball that he always fields. He was positioned perfectly, just didn't make the play. I thought Eddings was pretty consistent in this game, but he's human. And, there's a reason why people in baseball are fighting for the robot umpire, because they're not perfect. They're human. And they're going to miss some calls. It seems a little bigger when it's the final pitch, of course. And that's the one that you're going to remember. But the umpire was not the reason that the Dodgers won this game. It was Cody Bellinger beating Doval in the ninth inning.
So you said it's a shame that anybody had to lose. And, I mean, it really is. Two teams, a 107-game winner, 106-game winner. It's a shame this thing couldn't go 7. And, it's a shame it couldn't have been later in the postseason. But this Giants team, nobody expected them to come close to doing what they did this year. Over-under before the season was set at 75.5 wins. When you look back on this Giants season, what's your biggest takeaway from what this team accomplished?
Yeah, Steve, I'm gonna say this as a former GM. This was the greatest work I've ever seen a GM do of building a team that could win 100 games in the offseason. Farhan Zaidi, who I've often said is usually the smartest guy in the room, even if it's filled with the best baseball executives in the game. What he did to rebuild the rotation, getting 4 starters under 1-year deals, the job that he did piecing this team together, the way he acquired all these players to go along with the nucleus, the Buster Posey, the Brandon Crawford, the Brandon Belt, and the Evan Longoria, but all these other pieces that he put together, whether it's Lamont Wade Jr. or Michael Yastrzemski or Austin Slater, the way they put the pitching staff together. Look at Logan Webb, who this year has become a star. He's now an elite pitcher. He's now an ace. No one even knew Logan Webb last March. So the job that Farhan Zaidi and Scott Harris, the GM, the job they did in building this team, will always go down with me as one of the best jobs of a GM ever. Look, it's one thing when you have unlimited resources and a stock farm system to go buy free agents or to make big trades because you're so loaded financially with a farm system. But when you do it the way Farhan Zaidi and Scott Harris did it, this is when you just go and take a bow and say congratulations, because you were smarter than everybody else. And that was the case with this Giants team this year.
So, Jim, I know we'd all like to take a breath and just kind of bask in the glow of what Game 5 was, but there's more playoffs to go now, and you got to look ahead. The Dodgers facing off against the Braves, a rematch of last year's NLCS. How do you see the matchup going here? Very, very high level between these two teams.
Well, the Dodgers are going to be heavy favorites in Vegas, but I'm going to tell you, the Atlanta Braves are going to make this a series. They're a really good team, and who would have thought back in March that they would lose Ronald Acuna Jr., Marcell Ozuna, and Mike Soroka, 2 of their best bats and arguably their best pitcher. They've lost all 3, and yet they're sitting here with a rematch of the Dodgers that we saw a year ago, and they are capable of upsetting the Dodgers. The Dodgers just went through this exhaustive series with the Giants. Their pitching is not lined up perfectly. On the other side, the Braves are absolutely well rested, and they've got pitching that can dominate. Max Fried was one of the best pitchers in baseball the last 6 weeks of the season. Ian Anderson, in his short postseason career, has been nothing but brilliant. Charlie Morton is a guy that's got a great postseason resume. So the Braves have the pitching. And by the way, their bullpen, they've got 4 arms that basically haven't given up almost anything over the last month. So their pitching is good. The Braves are one of the best defensive teams in the game. They are capable of upsetting the Dodgers. Now, I'm going to pick the Dodgers to win the series, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to predict that it goes 7 games.
Jim Bowden, thank you so much for the time. Instant classic, lived up to the hype. We appreciate you breaking it down with us here on HQ.
Thanks, Steve.
So we're down to the Final Four now. Red Sox, Astros, that ALCS had been set. Dodgers, Braves, rematch of last year's NLCS. Jim Bowden thinks it's going to go 7, went 7 last year. Dodgers came from 3-1 down to win the series.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.